Get yourself in the lotus position, because I've got no plan, no pretense, and definitely no bypassing. I'm Josh Connolly, and this will probably be dysfunctional. So in last minute fashion, I've decided to do a podcast to get ready to go out on, well, it's Christmas Day. This will be going out on Christmas Day. Inspired actually by the fact that, I don't know if any of you are like this, but all week I've just been able to achieve nothing, get absolutely nothing done. I mean, I did have I got an infection in my wisdom tooth, but that wasn't really what was stopping me. I go through these periods where I just can't do anything. I cannot get myself motivated to do anything. And the days go by and I achieve absolutely nothing. I can't engage my brain. I can't find a way to work. I just can't do it. And then today, which is my last day in the office until Christmas and the Christmas break, before the Christmas break, and I've got this fucking I'm going to get so much shit done. It is going to be unreal. And so I thought I'd do a podcast. And as I say, it was inspired by In Breathing Space, my online community this morning. We got talking and the subject of struggling with binge eating, overeating, or what I would call food addiction, particularly over Christmas, but at any time really. And so I've been inspired today to, rather than not put out a podcast at Christmas, I'm going to put this one out solely on this subject. So who knows how long I'm going to be here for. I haven't planned anything. I just thought I'm going to sit down and speak from the heart about this because it's something that I'm really passionate about. And what I'm going to call food addiction, my food addiction and my difficult relationship with food began when I stopped drinking, really. When I first stopped drinking for the first few years, food replaced alcohol. And I began eating as a way of comfort. And, we call it comfort eating. Comfort eating is something that you hear a lot, right? And I understand why we call it that, because there's a comfort in it. It's about coming away from that discomfort into comfort. But, in IFS, internal family systems therapy, they talk about firefighters, and that feels way more, it's less like, I'm not comfort eating, I'm fucking throwing food down my gullet to put the fire out. The fire that's raging, which is one that I find it really difficult to be and feel safe in my body. So I eat sometimes because I don't feel safe in my body. And so it is about comfort, but it just doesn't feel like the word comfort does it enough justice. And so what I believe and what I find about myself is that I have a food addiction. And I want to just tell you a little bit about what that's looked like for me over the years. And when I say over the years, I mean particularly over the 12 and a half years of not drinking, where relationship with food has become one of 1,000,001 different addictions that I've picked up as a way of trying to feel comfortable in my skin and in my body, I think. And so escaping into food, but particularly binge eating, actually not particularly. Firstly, it started off as binge eating. Now let me just tell you what binge eating looks like for me. All right. Binge eating often precedes a erratic attempt from me to try to get on top of the ways that I eat. And actually, it's not even trying to get on top of the ways that I eat. It is starving myself by way of punishment in reaction to the sense of shame that I feel around my inability to feel safe in my body. And so the escape that I seek through eating in the way that I do. And so what often happens is I'll wake up in the morning, I feel very shameful about that lack of control. I feel like there is something wrong with me, and that I deserve punishment for how I have acted the day before. And so instead of having a healthy, loving relationship with my body and fueling it. So what I do is starve myself during the day. There's a couple of reasons why I do that when I'm in this particular state. I feel a sense of control. So I talk about how I may be somewhere and I'll think, if I go, I've not eaten. So say it's like, it might be midday and I'm going into like a session, a 2-hour session or something. And I'll think, I feel hungry, but if I don't eat now, I won't be able to eat in that 2 hours. And then that'll be another 2 hours gone. And then I'll get this you get that slight taste when you've got an empty stomach. There's a certain taste in your mouth and all of that. And then it feels like I'm winning, like I'm in control. And then what will happen is I'll get home and I attach what's going on, the sense of control over starving myself, to the way that I look. But it's not really driven by the way that I look. It's driven by that want for control, that sense of shame. But then I gets wrapped up in all of that is the way that I look, the way that I view my body, which is the thing that I have a struggling relationship with. I have a struggling relationship with my body, What I see when I look in the mirror is not a reflection of what's there, it's a reflection of a view of myself. So when I look in the mirror and think that I'm a fat, ugly mess, it's not necessarily because I am a fat, ugly mess, whatever that might be, right? It's because I'm so disgusted with what I see. And so I'm using that kind of language. So if I come home after a day where I have controlled that and not eaten at all, right, and starved myself in that way, when I look in the mirror, there's a sense of, wow, you look good, man. You look like, I can see it. I think I look thinner. I think I look like I've lost weight. I think I look more tight, right? All of these kind of things, right? But then, of course, because I've starved myself and because it's so uncomfortable sometimes to be in my body, what inevitably comes in the evening is a binge. So then I eat like crazy, right? And I fucking eat anything that's in sight. And it's not like I can't turn my hunger off. This isn't hunger. This is, I'm out of myself. This is, I'm putting the fire out. This is, I'm chucking the food down into my belly. And I do it until I feel sick and disgusted with myself. And now I have to go to bed because I can't even be with how I feel about myself. And then the physical strain of feeling sick because I've chucked so much food in my body. And then when I go to bed, and bearing in mind, this is sometimes a couple of hours after I've looked in the mirror previously and thought all of those quote unquote positive things about myself, I now look in the mirror and what I see is a fat, ugly mess who can't control himself and who doesn't, who thinks and wants to be all of these fucking things in my life. And I can't even control the way that I eat my food. And then I go to bed with that sense of shame, and then the cycle then continues the next day. So I've been through them periods, I would say, for the 12 and a half years of sobriety, right? Things have changed, and I'm going to come to that. Things have changed quite drastically in the last year and a half. And again, I want to get to that. I'm going to get to that. But up until that, when it changed then, that was one of the cycles, one of the patterns that I would find myself in. As a result of that, I would put on a lot of weight. I would start to gain quite a lot of weight. And listen, if you look at my content over the last, how long have I been making content now? 7, 8 years, maybe 9 years. You'll see my weight fluctuate. It's up and down quite dramatically, actually, if you look. And that's because of this relationship with food. And then one of the other things that I do is I've become obsessed with controlling how I eat. Now, because of things like calorie counting, and listen, I'm not here, I don't want to debate whether calorie counting is a good or a bad thing. It's a bit like saying, is vodka a good or a bad thing? Well, it depends. If you talk to a fucking alcoholic, you're going to get a much different answer than somebody who might have a social couple of drinks at a party here and there, right? The answer is completely fucking different for the two of them, right? Do I think that if you are an athlete and you're trying to get rid of that last bit of weight for a competition coming up, right? Because I know as a footballer, if I'm carrying even 3, 4, 5 extra pounds at a good level of football, I'd like to think I've played at a good level of football. You can feel it, right? Particularly as I got into my older years. Again, another conversation. So I'm not saying that calorie counting is bad, but you can have a very, very unhealthy relationship with it. And the problem with it is when I became obsessed with it, I would stick to it completely rigid, completely regimental. And then everyone's saying, wow, you look so good. You know, like, cool, mate, have you lost some weight? Are you working out? Fucking hell, I wish I could do that. But really, in most cases when I've done it, it's become quite an unhealthy relationship with it. And I've tried so many different things from, from fad diets, but calorie counting is the main one that I go to. The only time calorie counting ever felt like it was working for me is when I had a thoroughly unhealthy relationship with it and I was obsessive and compulsive in the way that I did it, and then it would quote unquote work because the weight would fall off of me and I would get myself looking what we see as socially anyway in very good shape. Yeah. Now, let me just stress, as unhealthy as that relationship with the calorie counting was, it was definitely still a better place than the binge eating and the kind of shame and everything that I felt around that. It wasn't the best place. It wasn't the place where I regularly find myself now that I'm going to talk about. But I do believe that it was a better place. I do believe that it was a better place. I do believe there are moments when I'm calorie counting where I do get a sense of freedom. And so in some ways, the reset did help. But my relationship with food and my relationship with my body still wasn't what you would want it to be. Certainly wasn't what I would want it to be. Certainly wasn't healthy. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I'm just thinking as I talk here, the way that our body is what holds us. Our body is where we hold all of our emotions. And so the way that we love and treat that must be at some level linked to the way that we view ourselves. And so when we get caught in these kind of what I'm going to call toxic and dysfunctional patterns with things like food and the way that we fuel our body, I do believe that, deep down in that is some kind of dissatisfaction with who we are. But then you get caught in these addictive cycles. And so as well as the binge eating, I get caught in these calorie counting things. And so, I would try so much all of the time. And I knew that sugar, when I say sugar, I'm talking about refined sugar. The stuff that we fucking stick in glittery paper and market to children from the day that they're born. Right. Refined sugar in that way has always been my kryptonite. Like, at Christmas time now, when there's big boxes of chocolates and stuff like that laying around, that I cannot and just do not, I will not, right? And this is the thing about addiction, right? It's not about self-control. When I have one, I'm eating the whole box. I've never fucking understood somebody that could have one rose. And I just keep going back. And the thing about sugar that's different to like other drugs like alcohol and I would call refined sugar, I would call it a drug. The biggest killer drug, by the way. Obesity is probably as big a killer than any other drug, right? I think we should view it that way. Refined sugar. So I'm not talking about sugar in fruit. I'm not talking about a little bit of sugar in sauce. I'm talking about sweets and stuff that are made just fucking solely full of sugar to make us go back to them. Yeah. I kind of lost my train of thought a little bit here. But that's my kryptonite. And when I start, I can't stop. And so where I would often find myself when I'm not caught in this binging cycle, if I'm not in the calorie counting, where I'm just trying to live normal everyday life, is I would come home from work or wherever I've been for the day, and I would think, well, I'm fucking not, I don't want to eat chocolate, right? So I would start eating savory stuff, fucking cheese and crisps and whatever I could find that's not chocolate, 'cause I don't want to have chocolate. But of course, because I was hooked on refined sugar, I was looking for the hit. I was looking for to put out the fire, using sugar and with dopamine hits or whatever you want to fucking call it. That doesn't resonate with me, so I don't really talk in that way. But I'm trying to put out the fire with sugar. Eventually, I would cave and then I would have sugar. I would get my hit, eat until I feel sick, and then the binging would happen again, And I would have times where I would do all of that, and then I would go and buy a tub of ice cream, and I would buy a couple of big bars of chocolate while I was getting the tub of ice cream, and then I would do that every night. Fucking eating chocolate bars before I got home and getting rid of the wrappers so that nobody knew that I'd ate them as well. Like all of that kind of stuff, hiding wrappers in my car, eating without people knowing that I was eating, even though nobody's going to tell me off or anything like that. But in those kind of cycles with it, everyone that you speak to, it's like you got to find a way to have a healthy. I actually posted about my relationship with refined sugar, and as I'm about to tell you, I quit eating it. And I was told that I fucking shouldn't be posting it, that it's unhealthy for me to call refined sugar a drug, or that it's dangerous for me to say that sugar is really, really bad, right? And it fascinates me. So let me tell you what I did. Eventually, I realized that what works for me and my addictive nature with alcohol and drugs and things, other things, and I've quit lots of different things, behaviors and stuff in the past. What works for me is abstinence-based recovery, is when I say my ability to be able to have a functional relationship with this behavior or with this substance has gone beyond my ability to be able to do that. And so now I'm going to stop it. I'm going to go abstinence-based recovery. So I decided to do it with refined sugar. So I said to myself, I'm not going to eat refined sugar. I can eat whatever I want, but I'm abstinent on refined sugar. And by refined sugar, let me just again stipulate exactly what I mean. I don't not allow myself sauce. All right. So, but sweets, chocolate, cakes, biscuits, anything that is just fucking a sugar hit. And its only purpose is to be a sugar hit. And it has no other fucking benefit for our body whatsoever. I was going to stop. And what I found was it's about 4 to 7 days, life was horrible. I was miserable. I felt like I had turned my back on any kind of good life. But after that, what I found was not only did I stop wanting it, but I felt free of it. And I'll tell you, when I first did this, which was 18 months ago, I lost 10 kg in 3 months, eating whatever I want as long as it weren't refined sugar. And what I found is when I came home and had a couple of savory snacks, when I was full, I stopped eating because I wasn't addicted anymore. I wasn't looking for that fix, for that hit, for that sugar hit, dopamine hit, call it whatever the fuck you want. I kind of feels irrelevant to me. I was just looking to make myself full, and when I was full, I would stop. The only time I craved sugar or like ice cream or chocolate or anything like that was when I felt tired, down, lonely, upset, or was seeking some kind of escape. So I found this massive freedom, and anybody that knows me will know that I didn't shut up about it. I still haven't shut up about it. Although, as I'm going to tell you, I've had a number of relapses, and actually at the moment I'm in a little bit of we'll call it relapse, for want of a better term. Relapse, shorthand. You don't have to call it that if that upsets you. But what was super interesting is how upset everybody was. It wasn't like, wow, you've quit sugar. Great, good for you. It was like, seems a bit extreme, right? So when sugar, if obesity is like the biggest killer of people globally when it comes to anything, I think, I've got no stats to back that up. I've got no stats to back that up. Don't fucking come for me. Maybe my podcast should be banned or silenced or this one taken down. But like obesity kills a fucking lot of people, right? A lot more than a lot of things, right? And despite that, most people aren't happy about it. Even a lot of personal trainers would say to me, "Nah, it's all well and good, but it's not sustainable." It's fucking super interesting that people are like, "No, that's not sustainable. You got to find a place where you can have a treat." Yeah, I was going out for dinner with my family, and then at the end, when everyone was having a pudding, I wasn't thinking, "Oh, I'm really missing out on a treat here because I'm restricting my food." I would have an espresso and think, "This is fucking lovely. I don't miss it." In fact, it was more like, how can you lot sit and do that to your bodies and eat sugar in that way? And it just showed me that it's so ingrained in us that people can't believe the idea of abstinence based on that. And so there's loads of amazing foods that you can still have. Now, a lot of people will be saying, but there's refined sugar in everything, and so it's almost impossible to avoid. Yes, I was not completely avoiding refined sugar. But by going abstinent in that way, it worked for me and it blew everything out of the water, and I've stuck at it for 18 months. There has been a few times when I would pick sugar back up. When we went on holiday during the first year that I did it, and it was an all-inclusive one, and on holiday, and it was the ice cream I was missing the most, and then so I went hell for leather for a couple of days on that holiday, and actually then came straight back off of it. And actually now I find myself in a place where I've been indulging in sugar again. And I can already feel myself getting upset about it and really not liking it, because once I get into that addiction loop, it becomes a shame cycle. And listen, I think if you're somebody who doesn't struggle with addiction, then maybe it's different for you, right? And I do think that the reality is that when I talk about alcohol in the way that I do, there's lots of people that just don't identify with that. And if that's you, then that's cool. But for me, I have to first break the cycle of addiction before I'm able to then look at what it is about my body that makes me feel unsafe in it, and why I'm scared and why I'm in those shame cycles. So like I would say to anybody quitting alcohol, the first thing to do, right, if you're trying to quit alcohol, right, is not to, right, let's look at your childhood and try and find out why you drink. It's go abstinent, focus solely on not drinking for a week or two. With alcohol, I'd say it's probably a little bit longer. But you focus on that, and then we'll start to look. Once you've got a bit of abstinence away from it, and you're out of that loop, and you're out of that cycle, and you're out of that fucking just give me something to get away from me, then we can start to look at it. And the same has been true for me with sugar. When I quit sugar, I get that, and I do a couple of weeks to get free from it and free from that kind of shame cycle, tangled up mess that I find myself in when I'm in it. I get free from that. Then I start to find this freedom. Then I start to be able to think that maybe, and interestingly, I'm drinking a sugar-free Dr. Pepper here. Then I get free from it. Then I get to do some of the work on the reasons behind it and start to learn some things about myself. So, what would I say? Look, you might be listening to this at Christmas. Christmas might have just gone. If you resonate with what I say, look, I'm no fucking expert here. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a fucking doctor. If you didn't realize that, I think you've probably got a bit of an issue. I'm just a bloke who has had some struggles with food myself and has found a way that works for me. Do you want to give the way that works for me a bash? Give it a bash. You know, what I say is go 0 refined sugar. So anything that is just solely sugar, chocolate bars, sweets, cake, cookies, biscuits, sugar in your coffee or tea. That was easy for me because I've never had that. I did once upon a time, but when I quit sugar, I was long gone from doing that. And see how you go. Let me do a month sugar-free. You know, like people do dry January. Why not do dry January but from refined sugar? And just see how it goes for you. Now, I should caveat that, I guess, by saying that there could be lots of different triggers around food for different people. And so you know yourself well enough. If you are somebody who's had some kind of eating disorder, then maybe you should consult people that you've spoke to about that in the past before you do that. And it's been revolutionary for me, quitting sugar. And I'm going to get myself back on the horse and go cold turkey again. But as with all addiction, it's getting that first step to break the loop is the hardest bit. But I can certainly feel myself falling back into that shame cycle around it. And look, I don't think that our food system is set up. Our food system's set up to get you fucking addicted to it. That's the fucking truth. The food industry is no longer about providing food for you to nourish and nurture your body. The food industry is set up to get you fucking addicted. They spend millions and millions of pounds getting the right texture, the right amount of salt, sugar, and everything in their foods to keep you coming back to it. For me, that abstinence-based thing that I did, and then really getting a bit conscious about the food. So I stopped eating bread, by the way. Getting really conscious about that and just looking at what's in stuff and realizing, fucking hell, there's loads of sugar in that. I'm not going to go for it. I'm going to go down a different route. Really had a positive impact and a change on me, and it's amazing. Like I say, I even talked about it on LinkedIn and people jumped down my throats and said that it was bad. Somebody even said to me, you're not addicted to sugar. And I thought, I fucking hate it when people think they know you better than you know yourself. So yeah, look, I'm going to wind it up here. I said this one might be a little bit shorter. We're up to nearly half an hour, so still not bad for fucking me sat here on my own running my gums, is it? Give it a bash. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about it in January, and we can all do it together and see what happens. So yeah, hold me to that. I'm glad I got this out for you. If you're listening to this just past Christmas or whatever, you might not be. It might be a long time past and you've picked this podcast up. But if it is Christmas, I hope you're managing to get through it in whatever way works for you. And as always, I have been Josh Connolly. And as always, this was definitely dysfunctional. I did tell you it would be dysfunctional. So thank you for sticking around till the end here. And if you have enjoyed this podcast, then please help me to grow Dysfunctional by sharing with your friends on social media. You can find me at Josh_FFW. And then wherever you're listening to this or watching this, please make sure that you've liked and subscribed, left us a 5-star review and a comment if your platform allows it. And I'll see you on the next one.